In a sprawling home in northwest Arkansas, 19-year-old Ginger Duggar plays solo. This is about as close to alone time as she ever gets.
Hey guys, it is lunchtime. Everybody come to the dining room. Ginger has prepared lunch for us at Cincinnati Chili.
Wait.
You may already know her family, the Duggars, Mom Michelle, Dad Jim Bob, and 19 kids, most still at home, living in a 7,000 square foot house that doubles as a set for TLC's 19 Kids and Counting.
And our children. Yes, I delivered every one of them.
It's crowded, but calm. A cheerful place where proper etiquette is enforced down to the tiniest tot.
What are the 3 words? May I please?
But the Duggars never dreamed it would turn out like this. When Jim Bob and Michelle were married nearly 30 years ago, children weren't even on their radar.
We didn't know if we wanted to have children right away, and so Michelle actually went on the birth control pill, and she was on that for a little over 3 years. And then she went off that. We had our first son, Josh.
Michelle went back on the pill, got pregnant again, and suffered a miscarriage. Devastated, the couple sought divine intervention.
And right after that, God blessed us with twins. And then another one.
And another one.
And another one.
And another one. We thought, what have we done? It was overwhelming.
Clearly, the Duggars are different. Not all couples can or want to have this many children, or any children at all.
So if one of your daughters decided not to have kids, how would you feel about that?
We don't know if our children will be able to have children or not. And there could be medical problems, or they may choose not to have children. But that will be their decision between them and their spouse.
And I mean, whatever the Lord allows in their life.
You know, there are lots of reasons that people don't have kids. You know, there are cultural reasons, there are practical reasons.
Jonathan Last is a writer for the Weekly Standard and author of What to Expect When No One's Expecting. He says money is often a roadblock to parenthood.
It's become phenomenally expensive to have a child right now in America. When you add up all the costs, it's about $1.1 million to have a child for a normal middle-class American. That's a lot of money to spend on, you know, something that in 15 years is going to tell you that it hates you.
Whatever the reason, motherhood is in decline.
You want to show Mom?
In the 1970s, around 1 in 10 women were childless. That number now is closer to 1 in 5. Kids were never part of the plan when Laura and Vinny Ciaccio got married. Tracy Ellen Kamens and Jared Skolnick felt the same way. Both couples are now members of a social club for the childless by choice called No Kidding.
There are people out there who say, oh, people who don't have kids hate kids. Do you guys hate kids?
I don't hate kids.
Well, my favorite quote is Jerry, the founder of No Kidding, says, "I like women's breasts. I don't want my own."
I've been an SAT teacher and loved my students, but I just don't feel the same way about toddlers and babies that everyone else seems to.
But it doesn't mean you hate them.
No, I don't hate them. I'm indifferent toward them.
Why pose the question, why have kids?
I think it's an important question that we ask parents.
Jessica Valenti, who wrote a book called Why Have Kids, says there's a persistent notion that every woman, deep down, wants to be a mom.
I do think we run into a problem, especially when you're talking about women, when the expectation is, of course you want to have children, and not only of course you want to have children, of course it's going to be the most important thing that you ever do in your life. So you're really setting women up to fail in this way when you say they're going to bring you all the joy in the world, and when that doesn't happen, it can be really, really disappointing and devastating.
The childless by choice, Valenti says, are still labeled as selfish, when the opposite is often true.
The idea that the only way to be selfless is to have children, I think, is a really dangerous notion and a really dangerous ideal. There's plenty of ways to be a good, compassionate, productive citizen without bringing children into the world.
So let me just ask you all straight out, are you selfish?
I think it's more selfish to have a child if you're not sure that you can be the parent that you'd like to be. And I've always said that I'd rather make a mistake and not have a child than have a child and find out that that's a mistake.
I think we all make selfish decisions. Every time you go out and, buy yourself a latte instead of donating money to the poor, you're making a selfish decision. Life is about balancing the things you do for yourself with the things you do for the world. And there's a lot of ways to contribute to the world other than having kids.
Most people seem to agree. In fact, according to a CBS News poll, only 16% say that people who decide to remain childless do so for selfish reasons. But while not having kids may be more socially acceptable, some fear that a baby drought would be bad news. Figures show that we're below the replacement rate. That is, the average number of babies the average woman needs to have to keep the population stable. The replacement rate is roughly 2.1. The United States is now around 1.9.
Bottom line is we're just not making enough babies?
We are not making enough babies, sadly enough. It's because anybody who has been around babies would be able to tell you it's a lot of work, and a lot of it is not entirely pleasant.
Author Jonathan Last says a falling birth rate will transform the economy, and not in a good way.
If this continues, what do you think the U.S. will look like?
We'll have an entire country that looks like Florida with a whole lot of older people who need support, who need government assistance through the social welfare programs that we have, Social Security and Medicare, and we'll have a much, much smaller number of workers trying to support them. There's nothing wrong with not wanting to have a kid, but the goal should be to find ways to help the people who do want children to have them in what is a very expensive and complicated world.
Of course, parents would say there are plenty of great arguments for having children, and the no-kidding folks have heard them all.
Have you had people try to convince you that you're wrong?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're going to be so alone when you're older. Who's going to take care of you? Thinking that somehow children are just future indentured slaves or something like that. It's really not a great reason to have kids. And also just that since I don't know what I'm missing, I can't possibly know that I'm making the right choice.
What do you say to people who say that to you? You'll never know this joy.
Nobody who's known me really well has ever said that to me. So I think they have a difficulty understanding that different people want different things in life, and that what makes them happy is not necessarily going to make me happy.
So who's really happier, family folk or child-free? We asked people in both groups, and a majority, 67%, said people have an equal shot at happiness with or without kids. For the record, Jessica Valenti, who wrote Why Have Kids?, has a 2-year-old daughter.
I knew that it was always something that I wanted.
It's an enormous amount of work. A lot of the work, is not a lot of fun. This is, there's no reason to sentimentalize it.
Jonathan Last should know. He's a parent, too. Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar, already the parents of 19, are praying for more.
We haven't given up on trying yet, have we?
No, we're not giving up.
And the Chiacchios, Laura and Vinny, are thinking about expanding their own family someday by getting a dog.
The wines lose so much, because the grapes lose so much.